So there's another one of these videos out there now of these, one of these TikTok influencer fitness girls that just can't seem to find herself a guy, and the whole thing has gone viral. And honestly, it bothers me, but not nearly for the reason that it seems to bother everybody else. So I kind of feel like it's tough to talk about this sort of thing. You know, it's tough to decide whether and how many what details to give. Do you want to give this girl's name? Should we not give this girl's name? Um, and it just kind of feels like there is, there's a group of people out there, namely kind of like, you know, embittered single men. I don't really want to go so far as to say incels, because I do think that incels exist, but not quite at the same level as what other people seem to think that incels exist. But there does seem to be a crop of these embittered single men that really seem to enjoy this kind of thing. When they find online a video of like a really pretty girl who's frustrated because she's not having any luck in the dating market, and so it almost makes them feel better about themselves. It's like, oh, ha ha. It's like, oh, she won't date me and she can't find anybody else to date her. Ha 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 ha. This whole, Schadenfreude aspect of it. And, there's that is probably one of the things, Schadenfreude is maybe one of the things that I despise the absolute least. I think that is the lowest of all possible human emotions. I think that if you are prone to that kind of reaction, to other people's misfortune or other people's miseries, other people's sadness, I think you're kind of a shitty person. And I think on a deeper down level, like, you must understand that you are. But even beyond that, it seems like there's always like a whole crop of commentators that come out after these women every single time. That one of them puts one of these things out there. And you know there are people who would at least seem like they're approaching that whole situation out of some semblance of good faith, and they're saying things that they think are going to be helpful. And then basically, what these people come out and tell them, it's like, oh well, you're not trad enough. You're not feminine enough. You're not submissive enough. That's one thing that just drives me fucking bonkers every time I fucking hear that. Or these people who are sitting there and it's like, oh well, I guess you're not being submissive enough to the men around you. I'm sorry. Is it fucking 1790? Is it like the year like 1352 where you're living? Like, what do you even mean by that? Like, that is fucking crazy. I mean, speaking for myself only, I am far from the most trad person on the face of the earth. But in my opinion, if a man says that he's looking for a submissive woman, that strikes me as a bundle of red flags. Like a whole bundle of red flags, wrapped in red flags and then spray painted red. That does not strike to me, that does not seem to me like the kind of person that is actually looking for a partner. It actually kind of seems like it's somebody who's just looking for, like, you know, I don't want to say the word slave, but I just did. So now YouTube's going to flag me anyway, so fuck it. That seems to me to be the kind of person that is not really, going to be in a, who's not really going to be, a healthy influence within their own relationship. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they are most likely a potential abuser, but you know what? I think that we could safely assume that, you know, men that actually are abusive in their relationships probably do prefer submissive women. They probably choose women that they think are going to be submissive, or at least pick women that they wish would be more submissive. But it's out there, all over this whole this red pill manosphere, from both men and women, that are out there actually trying to sell submission as if it's some kind of like a healthy relationship model. where do these people come from? And how well funded are the women's shelters? I hope it's well. That whole last little bit actually kind of makes me wish that I was sitting here recording this podcast with like a great big tub of like corn on the cob. Because yeah, that was actually some kind of corny ass fucking male feminist kind of horse shit. That also kind of drives me nuts. But I think in this particular instance, I think it's actually quite well fitting. I don't really see anything good that comes out of this whole idea of like submissiveness as like a relationship model. I think that that probably is like a pipeline into abusive relationships. But you hear this kind of stuff all the time, and you hear it said to some, in just some wild contexts. And so there was another one of these videos from a few years ago. And again, I'm not going to mention this girl's name because who knows? I mean, I don't want to drive any kind of harassment in her direction, in one way or the other. But this girl was, another one of these. These videos are always recorded in the car. Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing about them. But she's sitting in her car, and she's talking about how, the kind of men that she wants never seem to really want men that are like her, and so she's showing off her muscles and her tattoos. And she has one of those septum piercings, and somebody's even there telling her, it's like, oh well, you need to be less masculine. You need to be more feminine. You need to be more submissive. Horse shit. Horse shit, you idiot. Get out of the house a little bit more. Because for one thing, this girl was very pretty. Very, very pretty. So right then and there, got a lot working for her in her favor. And then the whole thing about, oh, well, men don't like women with muscles. Horse shit. Dummy. I know all sorts of guys that would absolutely love themselves a muscle mommy. They would love that. As a matter of fact, I know a few guys at the gym that I go to have their eyes on particular girls in the gym who are definitely muscle mommy material. And so the whole idea that these women need to not have muscles in order to get themselves a guy, horse shit. Fuck off. Who asked you anyway? I mean, there is something to be said about, people that are a certain way will attract people that are, themselves attracted to that kind of thing. That in itself is fair enough. But to sit there and tell them, it's like, oh, well, you have to change everything about yourself in order to, like, that doesn't help. Like, that's not helpful. Like, that's not helpful advice, and is definitely not good advice. And I think that the most unhelpful thing that seems to I think that the most unhelpful thing that tends to materialize. Come on. And I think that the most unhelpful thing that tends to materialize around these sorts of things is the number of people that actually come out and criticize them for these women for talking about what they want. And make them seem like they're self-absorbed or unreasonable for talking about the things that they want. And it's like, hey, you know what? That's allowed. Okay, these women are allowed to want what they want. And they're allowed to even talk about what they want. And though we have seen, I think in recent years, we have seen a lot of these videos about, where we kind of discover that, some of the things that, portions of women describe are just kind of like not as plentiful as they seem to think that they are. I mean, I was actually kind of blown away by the statistic of like how many men are actually above like the height of 6 feet. I think that, like at least for me, I had always kind of thought that about like 6 feet, like in that 5'10" to 6 feet range, that was kind of the average. Turns out, no, not so much. Men that are 6 feet or taller are actually kind of like a much more statistically small portion, of that. So that was kind of interesting to learn. But aside from that, people are allowed to want what they want, and it is not right, reasonable, fair, or even helpful to excoriate them on the internet for it. So that's the kind of horse shit right there that really should stop. But I don't think it's going to, because I think that even if the good faith people, the people that are coming forward and offering this advice as if they're actually trying to be helpful, and maybe they actually are actually trying to be helpful, even if all of those people turned around tomorrow, sat down, and got it right, you know, you still have all of these fucking bitter little crab bucket fucks. They're gonna they're going to take whatever pleasure they can out of the misfortune and the unhappiness of these women, and that is never going to lead anywhere other than and like a whole lot more unhappy people. Because let's face it, I mean these women that are making these videos, and you see them come up every so often. You know, seems like maybe one crosses my feed in a big way about every 6 months. So I guess this one was due. But obviously they're not happy. Yeah, and these miserable little crab bucket fucks. Obviously they're not happy. And whatever happiness they're getting out of the Schadenfreude, at the unhappiness of these other women, of these other people, these women, these unhappy women, that's going to be fleeting. That's like what? That's like what? Maybe 15 seconds after you write your mean comment on the internet, and that's done. So, in the long run, you're not really any happier than you were before, than you were going to be anyway. And the truth is that there's a lot of lonely people out there like these women who would love nothing more than the opportunity, to open up a little bit, and see if there's at least some empathy for them, or if maybe somebody actually has something to say to them that's useful to them. And it seems like it's not at all an uncommon experience, that this kind of advice really it just isn't out there. And not only is it just not out there, but there's so many people out there that even if they had the magic bullet, that could solve this problem for all of these people out there, men and women, it seems like even if they had it, they wouldn't share it because they're just too damn busy trying to garner clout or petty enjoyment, out of the miseries of other people. I think really, I kind of wanted to conclude this video by saying that the whole damn internet needs an enema, but maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe we would still have problems like this, if the internet didn't exist to showcase them, and we just wouldn't know about it. So I don't know. Maybe the whole damn world needs an enema. Maybe that's an idea.